Imagine this morning that you're driving a bus, and the bus is going to make 3 stops today, and I'm going to ask you to engage your mind here with me for just a few moments. How many of you like math? Anybody like math? How many of you hate math? All right, good. Well, guess what? I'm gonna test your mind a little bit, but I need you to hang with me. All of you can do it. Students, I know school hasn't started yet. This is a good way to keep your mind sharp this summer. So the bus is going to make 3 stops. Okay? So this bus makes 3 stops. At the first stop, the bus has 55 people on it, and 13 get off of the bus. 7 get on the bus. Okay, raise your hand if you're still with me. How many of you, you already lost me? You said numbers, I don't want to hear it. All right. So you had 55 on, 13 got off, 7 got on. The second stop. This bus, 27 people get off and 16 people get on. I'm going to give you a second. Calculators are moving in your brains. I see it. All right, final stop. 11 people get off and 19 people get on. Now, don't yell anything out, but how many of you think you know how many people are on the bus? All right, great. Go ahead and tell me. How many people are on the bus? We got different numbers. The answer is 46. But even if you didn't get the right answer, I want to ask a question. See how many of you can get this one right. If you had to guess, just take a guess. We know how many people got off, how many people got on, how many people are on at the end. If you had to guess, if you already heard this, don't shout it out. What is the name of the bus driver? How many of you think you know the answer to this question? All right, some of you are trying to process this for a second. I want to remind you the very first thing I said was, imagine you're driving a bus. So tell me, what is the name of the bus driver? Whatever your name is, that's exactly right. Now, some of you guys are like, man, you tease me. You know, that's a brain teaser, that's a riddle, whatever it is. Listen, I just wanted to get you warmed up because what we're going to talk about today, if you have your Bible, you can turn to Psalm chapter 139. These next couple of weeks might be a little bit like that, where they're going to kind of stretch your brain. If you want to grab onto what we're seeing in Psalm chapter 139, it's going to stretch your brain a little bit because you can kind of view these things. We're going to talk about 4 aspects of God these next 2 weeks from this passage. And if you're going to try to wrap your mind around it, first of all, you're never going to be able to wrap your mind all the way around it. But to get a glimpse of who God is and how amazing and awesome God is, it's going to stretch your brain a little bit. So we're going to look in Psalm chapter 139. We're going to look at 4 segments, 4 different divisions in this chapter. They're all in 6-verse segments. Today we're going to look at the first 2. These are huge theological truths, huge doctrinal truths, and they're intellectual truths that you and I need to be thinking about when we understand who God is. The first one of these things is this: God knows everything. Not most things, not some things. God knows everything. Here's what David says, Psalm chapter 139. He says, "O Lord, you have searched me and you know me. You know when I sit down. You know when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from afar. You search out my path and my lying down. You are acquainted with all my ways." He's saying God knows your actions. He knows your motivations. He knows your directions. He knows what you're doing with your life, the direction of your life. Job says it this way. He says, the Lord knows the way that I take. God knows what you're doing, the directions. He also says he knows your thoughts and your words. Listen, he says, even before a word is on my tongue, behold, O Lord, you know it altogether. He says, you know these things. He doesn't just know everything. He knows anything that's going to happen before it happens. Verse 2 says, you know my thoughts from afar. What that's saying, it's not talking about that God is really distant and he's way back from you and he still knows your thoughts. The idea is not space, but time, that he knows your thoughts way before they've ever happened. He says, you know my thoughts from afar. Then he says, you hem me in behind and before, and you lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high, and I cannot attain it. Some of your translations says, too lofty for me to attain. Your knowledge is too lofty for me to attain. Basically what David's saying, he's saying, I can't even wrap my mind around the fact that you know everything. He's saying, I can't know everything, but I can't even wrap my mind around the fact, God, that you know everything. The first thing that you and I need to understand is that God knows everything. The theological word to this is omniscience, that God is omniscient. He has all knowledge. God is not learning anything. When you and I go through our day, we're going to be learning. We're going to be seeing things unfold. God is not learning anything. He already knows everything. He has all knowledge. Now, there's a futurist named Buckminster Fuller. In 1982, he wrote about what he called the knowledge doubling curve. He said in 1900 that human knowledge doubled every 100 years. This was an estimate, but he said human knowledge doubled every 100 years in 1900. By 1945, he said it doubled every 25 years. In 1982, when this guy wrote this, he says it doubles every 12 to 13 months. Now, there's a new futurist named Scott Sorokin in 2019, so almost 5 years ago, 4.5 years ago, he wrote about thriving in a world of what he called the knowledge half-life. And he says, you know what, if in 1982 knowledge was doubling every 12 to 13 months, he says now that knowledge, actually he said a couple years ago, that knowledge would double every 12 to 13 hours. Human knowledge is doubling every 12 to 13 hours as of a couple years ago. They haven't even projected what that looks like now. The idea is that there is knowledge everywhere, and not one of us in the room has all knowledge. But here's what's interesting. You can think of any individual area on the planet, and no one in this room has all knowledge about that individual area. There's nothing that any of us have all knowledge about. No thing that any of us have all knowledge about. But God knows everything. You take all the cumulative wisdom, all the cumulative knowledge of all of history, of all of mankind, it doesn't come close to what God knows. God knows everything. He's not surprised by anything. Like I said, he's not learning anything. God knows everything. But here's the second truth that we have to understand, that God is everywhere. God is everywhere. Verse 7 says this. It says, where shall I go from your spirit? Or where shall I flee from your presence? I want to pause for a second. Some of you, when you hear that God knows everything, you're like, I think I might want to get away. I'm a little bit scared that God knows everything. I might want to get away. So David says, God knows everything. And he says, where can I go? Where could I run to get away from your presence? He says, if I ascend to heaven, you're there. He says, if I make my bed in Sheol, that's death, and the grave, that's hell. That's the idea. He says, if I make my bed in Sheol, you are there. He says, if I take the wings of the morning and I dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me and your right hand shall hold me. He says, if I say, surely the darkness will cover me and the light about me be night, even the darkness is not dark to you. The night is as bright as the day, for darkness is as light with you. He says, where can I go from your presence? Where can I flee from you? He says, death can't hide us from God. He says, distance can't hide us from God. No matter how far we think we might go, distance can't hide us from God. And he says, darkness can't hide us from God. Basically, he's saying, there's nothing I can do to get away from your presence because nothing can hide us from God. God is everywhere. Now, the theological word for God having all knowledge is omniscience, but God being present everywhere, the theological word is omnipresence. That he is present everywhere. There's nowhere that you and I can go to be away from his presence. Now, again, there's some people in the room right now who, when you hear these things, some of you are like, man, God, you are so awesome, and thank you that these things are true. Some people in this room, we go, God, I'm not sure that I like that you know everything, and I'm not sure that I like that I can't escape your presence. Wherever you land today, I just want you to know for right now that God knows everything and God is everywhere. But these are deep theological truths. They're deep realities. But here's the thing. David isn't writing a doctrinal statement. He's not writing a doctrinal thesis. He's writing this as a song of worship. And here's why this is important for us to understand, because these are deep theological truths. They're deep doctrinal truths. They're deep intellectual truths that we should try to understand about who God is, even though we'll never attain it all or get all the knowledge of being able to wrap our arms around these realities that God knows everything and that he's everywhere. David says, guess what? These things are realities, but what he's worshiping God for is that these realities are personal. They're personal truths. So here's the idea that God knows everything, but he doesn't just know everything. He knows everything about you. He knows everything about you. Now, again, there's two different responses. Some of you are like, oh, man, I don't know that I like that. I don't know that I like that God knows everything about you. But here's why I want you to understand this. We're going to talk about it again a little bit next week. This is why I want you to understand this. Because his knowledge is real, but it's also personal. That he actually cares about you. His eyes are on you. He knows you fully. Now, there's a lot of people in this room, and you can go to a lot of different places, but here's one of the things. There's people in my family in this room. My wife is in this room. And there are going to be people sometimes when we're here that they'll stand up and walk out. Maybe they have an emergency or something like that, because I know you wouldn't leave for any other reason other than emergency, right? But people sometimes stand up, and listen, that kind of stuff can happen at times. But if my wife stood up and walked out, I would notice anybody that moved in this place. And I notice and I see things that happen, and I look and I see those of you that fall asleep, things like that. I see these things. But if my wife stood up, my attention's a little bit different. Now, I love all of you, but I love my wife in a different way. And so my attention on her is a little bit different. Even though I might have knowledge about what's happening in the room, when she's moving, it makes a difference. When my son is in this room and he's moving, it makes a difference because my attention is on the ones I love deeply. And the idea that he has all knowledge and he knows everything about you isn't just because he has all knowledge, it's because his knowledge is also pointed at his love for you. You need to understand how important this is. He says, you know when I sit, you know when I rise, you know when I lay down, you know when I get up, you know everything about me. And the idea of what David is saying is you care enough to know. He cares enough to know. He doesn't just know the number of hairs on your head, and you don't see that in Scripture just because he knows everything. The idea of that is that he cares for you in that way. That his knowledge is directed and it's personal for you and for me. His eyes are on you. He doesn't just know everything. He knows everything about you. And for those of you who say, man, I wish God didn't know everything about me, that kind of scares me. I want you to know this. He knows everything about you and he still loves you. For a lot of us, that scares us because we think if anybody around us really knew everything about us, not just our actions, not just what we do on the outside, but really what's in our heart, what goes through our mind, we think that, well, if people knew that kind of stuff, they wouldn't have any respect for me. They wouldn't love me. They wouldn't care for me. I want you to know God knows all of that stuff, and he still loves you. He still loves you. He knows you. And here's what's amazing. He wants you to know him. Now, you're never going to know him the way he knows you. On this side of heaven, you're not going to know everything about him. He knows everything about you, but he wants you to know him, and you can know him. But here's the next thing. God is everywhere, but he's everywhere with you. There's nowhere you can go from his presence. He sees you completely, and he doesn't just want you to know him, he wants you to be with him. He is with you, and he wants you to be with him, and you can be. John chapter 14, Jesus was speaking, and he says this. He says, do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God, believe also in me. He said, in my Father's house there are many rooms. If it were not so, would I have told you that I was going to prepare a place for you? And if I go to prepare a place for you, I will come again and will take you to myself, that where I am, you may be also. He says, I am going to prepare a place for you because I want you to be where I am. I need you to understand, he is with you no matter what. But he says, I want you to be with me. I want you to be where I am. And Thomas said to him, Lord, we don't know where you're going. How can we know the way? And Jesus said to him, I am the way, I am the truth, and I am the life. And he says, and no one comes to the Father except through me. He says, I want you to be where I am. And by the way, I'm going to be with the Father. And he says, I'm everywhere. But he says, I'm going to be with the Father, and I want you to be where I am. But also, here's what I want you to know. You want to know how to get to that? Get to where the Father is, to get to where I am? He says, I'm the way, I'm the truth, I'm the life, and no one comes to the Father except through me. The idea that God is everywhere and he wants you to be with him. For a lot of us, we try to run. We try to run. And maybe some of us, we're not trying to run, but we feel like we're running. I think of a toddler. I know my kids did this, and you've probably seen this. If you've ever been in public settings, you see these little kids, and they start running away from their parents, and their parents start chasing them, right? The little toddler is running away. My kids did this. They would run. Sometimes they would look back, didn't know where they were going, but a lot of times they would just run and run and run and run, and they are not stopping, right? Until they finally get to the point where they stop. And this happened to me, where I'd go chasing my kids would run and run and run, then they would stop and they would turn around to see how far they had made it, and guess where I was? Right there. I had chased them all the way, and they would turn around and go, like they were shocked to see that I was right there. Here's what I want you to know. This is why I tell you this, because God is everywhere, but he's also everywhere with you, and this is why this is important to understand. Because there's some people in this room who you've been trying to run from God, and you think you can, but you can't. You think you can. You say, I'm trying to run from God. I'm trying to get away. Here's what happens. When you turn around, when you stop for just a moment, you'll turn around and find out he's right there. You don't have to make your way back to him. He's right there. He's ready. Just like a father who says, hey, I'm here. You thought you were running, but I'm here. I've been with you the whole time. I was actually there before you got there, but I've been with you the whole time. If you've been trying to run from God and you think you can, you can't. But I kind of wonder if maybe there's a few people in this room who you say, I haven't been trying to run from God, but I feel like I have run from God. I want you to know, if you have been trying and you think you can, you can't. But if you haven't been trying and you think you have, you haven't. If you think you're far away, there's some people in this room who you say, you know what, I look and I want to be close to God, but I've made some mistakes. I've run away from him. I'm so far away. That phrase, I'm so far from God. That's not a biblical phrase. That's not a biblical phrase. Now, running from God is a biblical idea, but the idea that you've created any distance is unbiblical, because you have not created any distance. Now, maybe in your heart you've created distance, because I could be sitting next to my wife and be on my phone, and I'm not present with my wife in that moment. So physically, we're right by each other, but emotionally, I might be a little bit distant. Those kind of things can happen. I want you to know that if you think you've run from God, you haven't. He's right there. So if that's you today and you say, you know what, I know him and I'm not trying to run from him, but I feel so far away, here's all you have to do. You just have to turn around and look up, and he's right there. You say, God, I just want to recognize that you're here. I feel like I'm so far away from you, but God, you're right here with me. You've never left me. Your presence is right here with me. If you think you can run from God, you can, but if you think you have run from God, you haven't. By the way, that's great reason to worship. Last week we talked about what you and I were made for. We were made to worship. When we understand these truths about who God is, what other response can we possibly give than to just worship him? Now, that doesn't mean for all of us it's just like, oh, God, you're so good. No, sometimes it could be, oh, God, you're just so good to me. We're just overwhelmed with the reality that, God, you know everything and you still love me. The Bible says that God demonstrates his love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. He didn't die for you when you were at your best. He died for you when you were at your worst. He knows everything about you, and he said, you might say, I don't want him to know everything about me. He still does, and even all the bad stuff he knows. He said, yeah, I'm dying for you. Jesus said, I'm going to die for you. Not at your best, at your worst. No matter how far you think you've run from God, you haven't. You haven't created any distance, any separation. Now, our sin separates us from God, but he's still right there. If we'll just look, we'll say, God, I know you're right here. I don't have to work my way back. I don't have to do anything. I understand that you're with me, and now I want to follow you. You can walk with him again. He wants you to know him, and he wants you to be with him. And you can know him, and you can be with him.